On the second episode of the East African Basket tonight, we are still in Uganda, well, this time focusing on Robert Kabushenga, a lawyer and media executive who served as the managing director and CEO of New Vision Group until January 2021. He now wears a different hat, that of a large-scale farmer in Namayumba. Mashirima Kapombe was in his farm and gives us the story.
For 14 years, Robert Kabushenga was the face of New Vision Group in Uganda until 2021, when he left the corporate world to pursue other interests.
Being on a farm was something that I looked forward to doing. Totally different, fulfilling in a different way.
Kabushenga's farm sits on 98 acres. The initial idea was to establish a rural home.
I grow coffee, I grow bananas, I have a few animals which are purely ornamental. I just look at them and I am happy.
He, just like other farmers in Uganda, barely uses synthetic fertilizer.
Generally speaking, the culture of our farming is we're dependent on nature and its bounty. The use of fertilizer in Uganda is very low, almost 1%. By the time fertilizer arrives in Uganda, just between Mombasa and Kampala, the margin goes up by about 5 or 7%. So I have never, in the 7-8 years that I've been farming, 8 years, had to apply synthetic fertilizer because of two reasons. One, for a farm this size, it is simply back-breaking financially. For me to be able to apply the quantity of cow dung I require to have the whole cultivated area of bananas revitalized in terms of humus and manure, I need between 50 and 70 Sinotrucks. I have many friends, they'll give it to me for free, but I have to pay for the transport. So that's 2 million shillings per truck. And I can live off that for 3 years. But I will never have enough money to be able to do that skill.
Would a fertilizer subsidy lessen his and other farmers' burdens?
Uganda has absolutely no interest in subsidy. In fact, the economists who manage our economy are completely averse to, and that includes the president, completely averse to any form of subsidy.
Weeds and pests that may swarm around his bananas, fruit trees and coffee are also managed naturally.
We avoid using chemicals to deal with weeds. Why? Because when you devastate the weeds, you can also devastate your crop. Because the weed killer, the synthetic weed killing chemical, doesn't distinguish. It goes for any living organism. Then here I have a lot of termites, I have a lot of ants. You have all sorts of little caterpillars and all those things. If you spray chemicals, you kill those things. Those ants, termites are so critical to the soil texture that you kill the ecology and the productivity of the soil.
Now, this farm has acres and acres of bananas to as far as the eye can see. The time, labor and financing required to get a farm to look like Mr. Kabushenga's is akin to scars of wounds inflicted to achieve food security.
There is no affordable financing in the commercial banking sector that would otherwise help us to meet those costs. We don't have, which is what we think the state could do, is what we call patient capital. The only capital available in the financial sector is from commercial banking. Now, commercial banks will not lend me money for my farm, but they'll lend me money for my house. If I give it to them as security, my house in an urban area.
But that is not the only challenge. He, just like the small-scale farmers in Uganda, experience similar challenges.
Agronomy support from the government, which is not there. And the frustration I have is the government does not have that conversation. I mean, I've never had an agronomist visit me from the Ministry of Agriculture. Never.
Despite that, food is still cheaper in Uganda than it is in Kenya. Why?
A significant number of Ugandan smallholder farmers are food secure in the sense that they have something to eat, which takes away the burden from the state.
His advice to Kenyans:
what are you doing growing flowers for lovers in Europe? Okay, how much portion of the income from the flowers that you send to Europe do you devote to improving agricultural practices? If you look at the Kenyan communities, isolate the Kenyan communities that are involved in active farming of whatever kind, whether it's livestock or maize or cassava, I don't know what you guys grow. Coffee, tea. Protect those people.
On the next episode of the East African Basket, we take you to Kwen district, where a rice project is set to change the fortunes of farmers in Uganda.